For 20 long years, I lived in the quiet ache of empty cradles and unopened baby clothes. Every time I walked past the children's section in a store, I would pause, sometimes reaching for a little onesie, sometimes just staring until my chest burned. I had memorized the schedule of fertility pills, the sting of hormone injections, and the names of every doctor who gave us false hope. Richard stood by me, at least physically. But over time, even his hands stopped reaching for mine in waiting rooms. We tried everything: hormone therapy, IUI, IVF, herbal remedies, and countless prayers. We even traveled abroad for alternative treatments. Each cycle ended in failure and deeper silence. My body felt like a battleground, prodded, poked, and always blamed. The silence between us grew louder with each negative pregnancy test. What was once a marriage filled with love and promise turned into a hollow arrangement defined by doctor appointments and polite nods. He began spending more time at work, and I started spending more time alone, crying into pillows soaked with grief, and still, I stayed. Because I believed in our vows. Because I thought love was supposed to endure. Because I truly believed that one day, a little heart would beat inside me, but I was wrong. Love, it turns out, can be worn down by time, frustration, and unmet expectations. It was a Tuesday morning. He didn't even have the decency to wait for the weekend. Richard came down to breakfast dressed in his usual suit, tie perfect, face unreadable. "I want a divorce," he said. The toast in my hand dropped to the floor. I thought I misheard him. Maybe he was joking. Maybe he was angry. But no. He repeated it, slowly. Clearly. Like he'd rehearsed it. "I can't do this anymore, Aurora. I can't keep pretending. I need more. I need a family." "We are a family," I whispered, his face twisted. "No. We're two people trapped in a cycle of pain. And I can't breathe in it anymore." Then the final blow came. "I've met someone else. She's pregnant." It felt like a blade twisting into my gut. I stood frozen, trying to hold on to something, anything. "You promised me forever," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He lowered his gaze. "I promised until death do us part. I just didn't think we'd die this way." 20 years of loyalty. Of faith. Of tears. All dismissed in one morning. He walked out the door and didn't look back. But I stood in that kitchen for hours, staring at the floor, wondering how I became so disposable. The nausea began 3 days after he left. At first, I thought it was stress. My body had shut down before after emotional trauma. But this felt different. My sense of smell was heightened. I couldn't stand coffee, which was strange, because I lived on it. I felt heat flashes, dizziness, cravings. Still, I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to open myself up to hope. But something urged me forward. Maybe it was defiance. Maybe it was a whisper from God. I bought a pregnancy test and took it with shaking hands. Positive. I stared at the little plus sign for minutes, unmoving. No. This couldn't be real. This had to be a mistake. I took another. Then a third, all positive. I couldn't stop crying. Not from sadness, but disbelief. My body, the one that had failed me for 2 decades, had done it now, when the only man I'd ever loved had just walked away. Then, the twist, a letter arrived from the fertility clinic. It revealed that my last procedure was tampered with. Richard had switched sperm donors behind my back, choosing a younger donor without telling me. He had given up on himself, and me, long before he confessed. The baby growing inside me wasn't biologically his. I felt betrayal all over again. But this time, I wasn't broken. I was furious. And determined. I didn't tell him. He had made his choice. He found someone younger, someone he believed could give him what I couldn't. I wasn't going to let him walk back in now. I moved out of our house that echoed with silence and dreams that never came true. I found a small apartment near a market. The windows were small and the kitchen was barely big enough for one, but it was mine. Every day was a battle. Grocery runs became exhausting. Nights felt lonelier than ever. But I decorated the nursery slowly. One tiny sock. One framed quote. One lullaby played quietly at night while I rubbed my belly and whispered to the life inside me, "You are wanted. You are loved. You are my miracle." I took prenatal classes alone. I watched couples walk hand in hand and prepared myself to do this solo. And when fear gripped me in the quiet of night, I prayed. Not for Richard to come back, but for strength. For peace. I named him Zamuzo. It means, my good fortune has come. And oh, how he was. His cry was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine and suddenly, 20 years of tears made sense. I wasn't late. I wasn't broken. I was being prepared. The hospital nurses called me a warrior. I had gone through labor alone, but I never truly felt alone. My son filled every empty corner in my soul. Those first nights were hard. I hadn't prepared for motherhood alone. But every diaper, every midnight feeding, every sleepy smile reminded me that I wasn't alone. I had him. He looked nothing like Richard, and now, I knew why. But it didn't matter. He was mine. He was enough. And I would raise him with all the love I had stored up for 2 decades. I needed to build a future. Not just for me, but for Zim. I used what savings I had left to open a flower shop. It was small, tucked between a bakery and a bookstore. I named it after the rain. Because that was what my life had become. People came in for roses, tulips, lilies, and they stayed for the warmth. My shop was filled with music and laughter and love. Zim grew up surrounded by petals and poetry. Customers adored him. And I, once called barren, bloomed in ways I never imagined. Then one afternoon, a stranger walked in, a man in his early 30s, soft-spoken, brown-eyed. His name was Chuka, and he had come to buy a flower arrangement for his mother, but something about him felt familiar. Too familiar. Later, I would discover, he was the donor and the biological father of my son. It was a regular morning. The bell above the door chimed like it always did. I looked up, and nearly dropped the bouquet in my hands. Richard. He looked older. Worn. Like the weight of his choices had aged him. He didn't say anything at first. He just held out a photograph. It was of Zim. Taken from a distance. Probably at the school. He looks like me, he said quietly. I looked at him long and hard. He's not yours, Richard. You made sure of that. His face crumbled. He sank into a chair, gripping the edge like it was the only thing keeping him upright. What do you mean? He asked. I handed him the letter from the clinic. His hands trembled as he read it. Color drained from his face. I didn't think you'd get pregnant, he said. I wanted to try one last time. I didn't trust my body anymore. But you didn't trust me either, I snapped. He fell to his knees. In my flower shop. The same man who left me broken. I made a mistake, he said. I've lived every day regretting what I did to you. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, steady. My son doesn't know you. I don't need you. But if you want to be in his life, you will earn it. I told Zim about Richard. About how he had once been a part of my life. About how sometimes people make choices they regret. Zim was thoughtful. Is he a good man now? I think he's trying to be, I said honestly. I also told him about Chuka. We had slowly formed a friendship. I didn't know what it would become, but he cared. About me. About Zim. And he didn't want anything in return. Richard began showing up. For soccer games. For birthdays. For Sunday ice cream. He tried. And I watched, but my heart, it no longer beat for him. It was learning something new with Chuka. Something soft. Steady. Real. In time, I forgave Richard, not for him. For me. Because carrying bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I laid it down, brick by brick, but I never went back. I was no longer the woman who begged for love. I was a mother. A businesswoman. A warrior. And maybe, one day, I would be something more to Chuka. A new beginning. Because life has a way of surprising you, again and again. And every night when Zim hugs me and says, "Good night, Mommy," I smile knowing this. I didn't lose a husband. I found my purpose. And I chose peace over pain, love over bitterness, and myself over everything else. Chuka was more than a name on a medical file now. He became a presence, steadily woven into the fabric of our lives. He'd pick up Zim from school when I was swamped with orders at the shop. He helped with homework, attended school plays, and even taught Zim how to ride a bicycle. But it wasn't just his commitment to Zim that moved me. It was the small things, how he fixed the broken stool in my kitchen without being asked, how he brewed ginger tea when I was too tired to speak, how he always saw me. Not the woman who'd been left. Not the mother. Me. One rainy evening, he stayed late after helping me close the shop. The power had gone out, and we lit candles in the dim light. I watched him play shadow puppets with Zim on the wall, their laughter echoing through the quiet. In that soft, flickering moment, I realized how my heart had shifted. From grief to gratitude. From pain to possibility, the inevitable happened. One afternoon, I returned home to find Richard sitting at the kitchen table, Zim's sketchbook in hand, and Chuka standing at the doorframe. The air crackled with tension. "You must be Chuka," Richard said, stiffly. "And you must be the man who left," Chuka replied coolly. I stood between them, my heart pounding. "This isn't about either of you," I said. "This is about Zim." The conversation that followed wasn't easy. But it was honest. Richard wanted more time with his son. Chuka wanted to continue being in his life. And I wanted what was best for Zim. We made a decision. Zim would choose. He deserved that power. And he chose to have them both. But as the tension thawed and boundaries were drawn, Chuka and I continued to grow. We started spending evenings talking long after Zim was asleep. Sometimes about parenting, sometimes about books, and often about nothing at all. In his company, I laughed freely. I healed. Zim turned 7 surrounded by the 2 men who helped shape his life. He didn't know all the details, but he knew love when he felt it. He had it in abundance. At the party, he blew out his candles and said, "I want mommy to be happy again." I couldn't hold back the tears. Later that evening, Chuka helped me gather the decorations. The house was quiet now, filled only with the soft hum of memories. He lingered in the living room, watching me carefully. "You know," he said, "it's strange how life pulls people together. I was never supposed to know you. But I'm glad I do." I smiled. "Me too." He took a step closer. "I know you've been through so much, Eudora. And I never want to add to your burdens. But I care about you. Deeply. I think I have for a long time now." I looked into his eyes, steady, honest, patient. "I care about you too," I whispered. He reached for my hand, and I didn't pull away. In that moment, all the pain of the past seemed to melt into something beautiful. Something new. The next few weeks were filled with shared glances, longer hugs, and quiet dinners after Zim went to bed. We took it slow, careful not to rush, not to repeat mistakes. But one day, while dancing in the shop to an old jazz tune, he kissed me. Soft. Sure. Unspoken promises in his touch. And I let him in, not because I needed to fill a void, but because I was whole, and ready to love again. Because sometimes, the heart doesn't forget how to bloom, it just waits for the right season.